Later. So welcome everyone. Thank you for coming to our second Stride seminar, third Stride seminar of the year. It's already been the third. So this is great. I know for many of you, you're finishing your semester, heading into exams. I know a couple of people have an exam as we're speaking. So hopefully it goes well with them. So today our speaker is Professor Patricia Phalen. So Dr. Phalen taught at Ohio University until 1998, when she joined the School of Media and Public Affairs at the George Washington University. She has also served as the Associate Director, Director of Graduate Studies, and Assistant Director of SMPA. She teaches graduate and undergraduate courses on media organizations and audiences, connections between Hollywood and politics, and the interdependence of media, democracy, and culture. So without further ado, the floor is all yours, Professor.
Okay, well, hello everybody. I thank you for that introduction, by the way. I wanted to start, what I'm going to talk about tonight is basically staying on top of culture and intellectual pursuits, right? Because I think what happens is that when we're students and when we're in the professions, that we forget to sort of develop that other part of ourselves, that the cultural and the intellectual. So I basically have, I'm going to share my screen now, and I'm a little bit bumbling at this, so please bear with me. I basically have three things that I wanted to talk to you about tonight, right? And here they are on a PowerPoint. If I can make this large so that you can actually see it. Go away there. There we go. All right. Okay, so the three things that I really would like you to take away from this talk that I'm giving tonight. One is, oh yeah, that's wrong. See, I told you I was bumbling at it. I wasn't lying. I really am. So let me, yeah, there it is, back again. Okay, so the first is that, cultural and intellectual growth is very much within our reach. And we're very lucky to live now because we have so much technology that can really help us to learn and to really follow our interests. And I think probably everybody has had, some experience with this during the pandemic, that you can watch things that we haven't, been able to watch because of time. Second is, developing a habit of learning is really what's going to bring us a great deal of fulfillment. So it's really worth carving out some time every day to do something other than what our professional work is requiring of us. And the third is that, thinking critically about culture is a means to understanding our world, and, I have here in parentheses, what are the relationships I'm seeing in this culture, because I'm going to give you a definition of culture that I really like. And that definition is, if I can get it, go to the next slide. Oh, wait, will this do it? Yes, okay. This is what I tell my students, I think of as culture with a capital C, right? And I'll just read it to you. I know you can all read, but sometimes it's good to hear it too. The relationships that people cultivate with the world, for example, nature, ideas, other people, themselves, and God, and how they express those relationships, for example, in art, language, living spaces, politics, economics, religion, and societal institutions. And I really love this definition because it really is, inclusive of many things that maybe we don't think about when we think about culture, living spaces, societal institutions, but it's really sort of all encompassing. And I have to, truth in advertising here. I lost the citation. I used to know it. But it is based on a document called Gaudium et Spes, which is from the Second Vatican Council in the Catholic Church. And it was actually, this actually came from a book that borrowed from that. And darned if I can find that book again to recapture that citation. So I hope I'm not breaking any laws, but you never know, I might be. So anyway, now to get back to you guys. Let's see if I can do that. That didn't work. I'm still, I see what I'm doing. I'm still sharing my screen. And now there you are. Hello. Okay. So anyway, so that's really where I'm going with this, and I hope it's helpful for you. Um, I think that, obviously we all know, right, that life is not just about our jobs. I mean, we may have jobs that we love, but it's not just about that. Um, and it can feel sometimes like it is. And that's especially the time that we need to sort of break out of it and do something different, something that one of our other interests, and pursue that. I do, for example, I'm not the best example, but I'm an example. I do try to take 15 minutes out of every day to do some kind of reading that's inspirational in some way, right? That's not just, I mean, I have to be clear here. I am very lucky in my job because I teach media. So a lot of my job is watching television, right? So it's not like I have this big onerous, you probably have jobs that are requiring much less stuff that's maybe fun, right? But television doesn't watch itself, so somebody's got to do it, and so I do it. But we participate in many different cultures, right? We participate in our family culture, we participate in our national culture, and we participate in our professional culture. So culture is everywhere, right? You can use that term a lot. But we're also consumers of culture. And I think this is really very important. Consumers of culture in books, right? Books are about culture, films, media, pop culture, which of course I love, but I'm a critical consumer of pop culture. So anyway, we have to recognize our role as consumers also, and to look at that with a critical eye, no matter what it is. And I'm sure you already do, right? I'm sure you don't just take things and, oh, if it was on television or I saw it in a movie, it must be, good, or it must be true. Um, so I want to go back to that definition of culture that I gave you, and ask you to think about a little bit. What are your own relationships, right? Because culture is about relationships, right? And I have to ask myself, what are my relationships to, for example, ideas? What are your relationships to ideas? Do we, just, oh, ideas are ideas, and that's a good idea, and that's a good idea. In school, I teach about the marketplace of ideas, which was a term that was coined in 1644, believe it or not, by a guy named John Milton, whom you probably have heard of. And he thought this marketplace of ideas was it was the perfect place for discourse, because all ideas could enter into this marketplace. It would be like going to the supermarket, and instead of products, you would have ideas, right? And he thought it was great. You let all these ideas in, and then eventually the best ones come to the top. And I think it's a nice metaphor, but it doesn't always work that way. I mean, because some ideas can take hold. I mean, ask people who went through the Nazi occupation in Germany, right? That, people who went through the Holocaust, ask them if the marketplace of ideas worked, right? It worked eventually, I suppose, but after many deaths. And so it's not just this, it doesn't quite work that way, but we can think about it in terms of, where do we get our ideas, right? And in that sense, it is kind of a marketplace. The media is kind of a marketplace of ideas, but we can't just wait until the good ones come to the top. We need to, think critically again about what the ideas are, what our relationship is to those ideas. What is our relationship to language, right? You all, I imagine that you all know more languages than I know, just because of where you live. I know one, and that's it. So, but you guys probably, many of you know French, and you may know Spanish, and you may know whatever. I'm a little limited there, although I did spend $40 on an online Spanish course, and it was a big waste because I never did it. But, I subscribed at least. But, language is not easy for me. Other languages, English, pretty easy. But maybe that language is where you might want to expand your horizons, to learn still another language, or learn about a culture, right? I mean, language is part of a culture, but you can learn a culture of another country or another time period or whatever. What is our relationship to politics, right? we're having some very interesting times here in Washington, D.C. with politics. As you know, maybe you heard about an election that we had. I don't know what's going on in Canada and what you learn, but no, I'm just being facetious. Really, we're having a very difficult time here. And I was speaking, just to give you an example, right, of what's happening in our culture right now that concerns me, right, is that we're very polarized, right? We have as a playwright, David Mamet has explained it. We have the left. Is this your left or just my left? I don't know, but we have the left. This is my left. We have the left, and the left, and well, we have the left and we have the right. Okay, and the left thinks that the right is evil, and the right thinks that the left is stupid. So how do these two come together, right? If one, you're evil, you're stupid, right? And that's sort of what's going on here. And you know, we have to. I mean, in this particular instance, I think I and all of us have to really think about our political ideas and how we express them. But I'm sure you have, situations that I don't know about, because we don't hear a lot about Canada. We don't. And that, you're our neighbors, but, we don't get a lot of news about Canada. So whatever is happening there, think about what your relationship is to the politics that's going on. And just to tell you, I interviewed, I do a lot of interviewing to write. Okay. And I interviewed this young man who was excuse me, I lose my voice very easily. And this is my new mug. Can you tell what nationality my ancestors were? Anyone? Yes, Irish. Okay, anyway, so let's keep going here. um, and he was telling me he's a 28-year-old guy, and he was totally for Bernie Sanders in 2016. He and all his friends. And this time around, though, he started watching other sources of news. And he was watching CNN, which is typically left, and Fox, which is typically right. And he was making his own decisions. What is going on and what do I agree with? And he decided that he was going to vote for Donald Trump in the 2020 election. Guess what? He lost all his friends. They all, like, suddenly, friends of, double digit years didn't want to have anything to do with him because he was voting for Donald Trump. Well, that's a little bit of a problem in our political culture right now, right? So, and whatever the difficulties are in your culture, how do you get through that? How do you relate to it? How do you change it or improve it? Whatever. And then, on the last point, I just wanted to say, right, that what is the culture that we consume? That saying, you are what you eat. Well, in some ways, you are what you consume in the way of culture, right? And there's a lot. And again, I love pop culture, and I watch a lot of. My field is television, more so than feature films. Um, and there are a lot of things in those television shows that you can get used to if you watch them over and over and forget that they're really not good, right? I mean, the way that sex is portrayed, the way that family life is portrayed. We have to ask questions also about representation. And I know that the Native population in Canada may have, well, I don't know, I'm guessing, all right, that possibly the Native population in Canada has the same complaint as the African American and the Native population here in the States, that they're not represented, that media are everywhere, but it's not really diverse at all. And so that's something that we also want to think about, and how those, sometimes, very often, at least in the past, we're getting better, the portrayals of, say, people of color here were really like insulting. I mean, there were stereotypes of people of color, and that's something that our culture, we want to get rid of that, and we're working towards it. I ask you to notice the ways that kids talk to each other and to their parents in the popular culture, in the movies that you watch, and in the television shows that you watch, and then you see it right in real life. That I see it with my nieces and nephews, the way that they talk to my sister and brother-in-law, and that's because culture has such an influence, right? um, but we also want to think about, what is good about those relationships, right? There is a lot more openness. I mean, this is just an example, okay, to get started with the conversation. But what is good with those relationships and what is not good? Um, Also, to think about the professional culture that you are either in right now or you are going to enter once you finish with your studies. And what is that professional culture like? I mean, why is it that way? And what is it that you can bring or get out of that culture that is good and nourishing, and it will lead to growth, right? Um, okay, so again, the resources that we have today, right, for cultural and intellectual development are immense, right? And growth is really within our reach. And as you know, because you are, a tech generation, um, we have audiobooks, right? I mean, I was able to listen to Russian literature on audiobooks, which I never would have been able to sit down and have the time to read. But, driving long distances, there you go. Documentaries, there are so many really good documentaries out there about various things, right? Netflix, I know Netflix has a different lineup in different countries, but I would imagine that Canada is pretty close to what we have here. YouTube. I mean, YouTube can be a total time suck. I mean, you just like get into YouTube and look and look and look and look. If you want to find good things, get recommendations from people. People can tell you what is worth your time, right? Because time is precious. Ebooks, same deal. Some of the ebooks, you can just take with you, read on your phone, and so many online events and lectures. So I guess that a trick that you need to sort of develop if you want to keep pursuing this cultural and intellectual development is to decide where you want to put your efforts. Okay, what is it that you want to go into? And it's worth making the time for that. And then lastly, I just wanted to say, it's very much worth sharing this, right? This sharing this adventure. I mean, that's kind of corny to say sharing this adventure, but sharing this adventure of cultural and intellectual growth with friends, right, or with family members. I have a friend that we share book ideas, and she reads things that I would never find, and I read things that she would never find. So we're trading back and forth and enjoying that. Writing groups, if you are interested in writing, reading groups, that the sort of stereotype of the reading group is, here's you have this much wine and this much conversation, right? But we could do like a real reading group where you're reading things that maybe are just for fun or whatever. Um, and sometimes it just takes one person to start this, and it can really make a difference to a lot of people to be able to do this above and beyond the professional work. And that is my shtick. Um, I think I had another slide, and now I can't remember what the other slide was. Oh no, I showed you the two. Okay, so c'est fini. And I would like to have this more of a conversation. So you can ask me whatever you would like to ask me. And let's see where this goes.
I have a
You are
question.
Guinevere.
Yes, thank you
Yes.
so much for what you said. It's really interesting. But I'm wondering, something that I was thinking about just before this talk actually was, it's so hard to kind of, I think a big part of intellectual growth is conversation.
Yes.
And especially politically, sometimes I just shy away from those discussions because it's so challenging to, talk, but speak from a rational perspective with people who you disagree with. Um, and I'm wondering, like, if you can speak to any how to have those conversations and maybe overcome that barrier. I mean, maybe that's a really big question, but yeah, just sort of how to be constructive.
It is a really big question. Coincidentally, one of the quotes that I have from this young man that I interviewed was that he shies away from conversations about how he, reasoned through who he was going to vote for because people can't handle the conversation. So, and that is a problem because people right now with politics, emotions are driving a lot of it, right? Not reason. And it's difficult to talk to somebody who's very emotional, right? My recommendation might be though, to just ask people where they stand and why, without saying, oh, I'm not for that, I'm not, I am the other side. And then maybe someday that person will ask you what you think and why, right? Because I think we don't listen to each other enough. I mean, listening is kind of a lost art. And when you listen to somebody and they feel heard, then they feel more open to conversing with you about other things, right? Even about controversial issues. Does that help? Yeah. Okay. Good luck. Yeah, it is hard. Anyone else?
I have another question.
Go ahead, Gwen. Okay. Well, thank you, Gwen.
Okay, so I know your name is not Kintor. So
Kintor is the residence. Anyway.
What is your name?
So my name's Eva.
Hi, Eva.
And thank you for speaking, Dr. Phalen. But I would like to ask a question actually on Belita's behalf.
Okay.
Because anyway, so she's a teacher and she says,
oh, you froze.
She asked if you have any advice for like when you want to communicate when you want to communicate something, but you do find yourself getting very passionate while communicating. How do you kind of like let it be so that the other person does feel free to be able to say something different?
So if you're very passionate about something and you want to speak about it, and how do you speak about it without making the other person feel defensive? Is that correct? Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
And how do you say your name again? She said it, but
Balita.
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 There are some really interesting names on here. I mean, names that I've never heard. And
I know, eh?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of cool. All right. So anyway, I mean, the strategies that I use, one is to say it sort of as a question. Like, I'm trying to think about a really good example. But to say like, so if I told you that I was in favor of, I don't know, ending the tariffs with China, I mean, what would you ask me? I mean, what would you think that I was saying, right? What would you think was behind that? And get people to talk about that. But I teach seminar classes, so I can do that a little bit more easily. But also to say things with, I mean, you have to hold your passion back, because if they see it, they are going to react to that with their passions, right? So I think you have to just say it kind of. Can you give me an example, Belita? Because maybe if I have your example instead of mine, I can, yeah.
What happened is that I usually talk with my students about ethical issues. So when they start talking, here in Canada, they are trying to pass a law right now, Bill 7, that is to extend euthanasia. So I was talking with my students, and it was very hard for me to hold my passions, because I think it's a horrible thing that they would expand it. So it's like, how can I make them think without, I guess it's better if I don't show my view, but it's very hard because I find it so unreasonable what they're trying to do. I find it very hard to explain it without getting too emotional about it too.
Okay, with that kind of subject, I might try dividing the class. I mean, if it's a small class, you can do that. Dividing the class and saying, okay, you are pro-euthanasia, you are anti-euthanasia. And whoever comes up with the best arguments for their side gets 2 extra points on the test. Right? So then at least you hear, and then as they're talking, you can also add things, right? Why are you against euthanasia? Well, probably they're not going to come up with the same kind of, well, with exactly the same reasons, you know, they'll probably miss some, and you can add that into the conversation. Now that's just off the top of my head, like how I would probably handle something like that. Because I teach media, I haven't had to do that. I haven't had to deal with topics like that, but ethics is so much different. You could also explain your position and the reasoning for your position without using the word I, right? Or, you know, explaining to them both sides, right? And how do you argue the ethical position on each side? I mean, I can't imagine arguing ethics with euthanasia. It's kind of, you know, yeah. I mean, I can understand arguing ethics with no euthanasia. Yeah, we shouldn't do this, but is it ethical to, you know, kill somebody? I don't know, right? You could also use some real life examples, like what has happened in, say, the Nordic countries, right? Real life examples are very good. You know, that it's not that usually what's portrayed, and I don't want to make this all about euthanasia, but usually what's portrayed is you're putting someone out of their misery, you're helping them die a dignified death, but that is not what happens all the time, right? And even that, you're denying them a chance to, you know, to somehow accept what is happening to them and let others help them. I mean, I don't know, but I'm not an ethicist. I'd like to think I'm ethical, but I'm not an ethicist. So I don't know. That's the best I got for that. But, you know, yeah, that's the best I got for that. Okay, Kintor's back.
Sorry, I have another question. This is now coming from me. Since you are in the media industry, what kind of advice would you give for those of us, like we all consume media, so how do we kind of consume media in a way that we can have kind of like well-informed opinions and listen like kind of from both sides? And I don't know if you have, or if you have even like specific news or media sources that you find are like very helpful, or yeah.
Okay, so when you say media, you're talking about information, like news, basically, news media. Yeah.
Yep.
Interesting question. I mean, I don't really do news. I do entertainment, but of course, I'm in a department that everybody except me does news, so I do have to deal with it. And I would say that it's good to watch opposing sides, and so I mean that's the CNN Fox thing here, but there are also some very good publications online, but the best way to find them is to ask friends what they use to get their news. Yeah, I mean, that's my best answer to that. It is not an easy thing to do, right? To find, but yeah, you have to decide it yourself. You know, you just have to decide it yourself. But yeah, I would say consume contrary opinions.
I have a question.
Thank you.
Who are you? Sarah, is that you?
Yes,
Okay.
hi.
Hi.
As somebody, because you're somebody who studies media, I'd be curious to know, I'm assuming you have social media. What do you use your social media for? Because I know a lot of young people, instead of following news sources, they tend to follow the very compact versions that they find online, and they get their sources of information from social media. And one of the dangers with that is because of the algorithms, it puts you in a bubble to show you more of what you look at.
Yes, yeah.
So I'd be curious if you use your social media for that, or if you use it for something else and would not recommend using it for news.
Yeah, I would never I would never use Facebook for news, because I mean, I would never use Facebook for news. I would use Twitter for news, but really just to see what's happening, right? So I guess I have to say that I don't really use social media all that much for news. I want to go in deliberately and find things rather than just consume whatever is being offered at that particular time, right? Um, yeah, I think, yeah, the bubble thing is a really good, a good way to put it. People do get into their bubbles. And I think the only way to stay out of a bubble is to really seek out views and understand what they are and why people hold them. Do you use social media for your news?
No.
No.
I mean,
Yeah.
I use it to see, sort of like the way you use Twitter, I use it to see what's happening, but
Yeah.
I find a lot of people put their opinions in it, and it's very difficult to find something that isn't biased.
Yes. Yes.
I had one other question as well. In terms of dialoguing with people who have different beliefs, I think one of the reasons why people get into such heated arguments is because they conflate the beliefs with the person. People identify very strongly with what they believe. And so if they are talking to somebody who doesn't believe the same things, they feel offended personally. So I was wondering if you had any recommendations on how to approach that.
Interesting. I haven't experienced that someone that I disagree with politically feels insulted. I have experienced situations where someone I disagree with politically cancels me, right? The whole cancel culture nonsense. And I haven't been canceled online or anything like that, but people know what I think, and if they don't want to hear it, they just don't deal with me. And they think that I'm, in my own corner here. This guy that I interviewed, James, he said that he asked, because he was voting for Trump, one of his friends called him a racist because he was voting for Trump. And so James said, "You've known me for like a dozen years. Do you think I was a racist all that time?" And he said, "Well, no, but maybe you were, and I just didn't realize it." And you're like, what is going on here? This is not, this doesn't make sense. This is not a reasoned, reaction. So anyway, so I haven't ever dealt with somebody who thinks that I'm insulting them. They think that I'm wrong, depending on the topic. They're more likely to insult me on something like abortion because I'm pro-life. So, yeah. Let's see.
I think Nicole had a question.
Nicole, where's Nicole? Nicole, hi.
Hello, doctor. How are you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good. I'm actually very interested. I watched a couple documentaries and did some readings. Is it true that you worked in Chicago?
Yeah,
Chicago. Okay. Well, I always like to read for the lectures. I like to read the professors or doctors' works. And I wasn't sure if I found the right. I really liked your research analysis and audience, like their audience research analysis you did while you were working in Chicago. It was very interesting. But I have more of a question about like the effects of what the entertainment can do, because over the years we see this culture kind of evolving into like back in the 1900s, you had women that were in skirts and dresses and very modest and kind of got the proper. And now we get to this culture of people not valuing, kind of objectifying women, which is part of like the media. And I was kind of curious because I spent some time in Tanzania where I had kind of went back in time, if you will, where people didn't realize that women had the ability to be engineers. And so my question that stems from this long period interlude is basically, how can we portray the entertainment that's objectifying women? How can we be teaching our youth to not be taking that with a grain of salt, and not be thinking that this is that it's okay what we have in this entertainment and this is the normal?
Okay, so the question is, how can we teach people? I mean, I think your opinion matters, and that you can. This is where I might use Twitter, right? Because I'm restarting my blog. I had a blog for a while that I was just commenting on television shows, and I'm restarting it, so I'll do a little of this. But I could use Twitter to say, look at that, whatever it is on whatever show. I mean, they really objectified her, and it's kind of insulting or something like that. And then let it go where it goes, right? Yeah, I mean, a lot depends on the actual situation. My advice would depend on the actual situation that you were talking. If you're talking one-on-one with a kid who loves a show, I mean, I'm trying to think of one. Oh my gosh, the Real Housewives of Atlanta, the Real Housewives of New York, right? I mean, they're doing it to themselves in a certain way. They're putting themselves forward like that. But is that what you want to be? Is that which, I don't know. But am I understanding correctly? I'm feeling like I'm not.
No, I was just kind of curious about, from an audience analysis perspective, how can we be portraying to other people in a way that won't have the way that will be honoring people? Because I know you have a specialty in women and women being portrayed in films in Hollywood, and I was just wondering, like, from an audience perspective, when they see something like that, how can we portray the message that there is value, right? We do, as women, do a value we can bring to professionalism and to working society. And I was just kind of like wondering what the best way to do that. So thank you so much. I appreciate it.
It's tough. I mean, the best way depends on the person. If it's a situation where, I can't think up a situation right now. If you think of one, let me know, and then maybe I can address it. But it's sort of kind of huge. Try to pinpoint what it is that you want to actually get at. I mean, I remember, I don't know if this helps you or not, but I thought this was pretty funny. I heard about a mom who used to watch TV with her kids, right? And actually, it was the dad and the mom who would watch TV with the kids. And when something would come on that was, off color or not, they would stop it and say, okay, now what commandment does that break? Which of the 10 commandments does that break? Which of the 10 commandments does that break? And the kids, after a while, it became a game, like figuring out which commandment was being broken by this, thing. And, that's how they taught their kids. I mean, I don't know if I ever would have thought of that. But, they were happy with it. Guinevere, you had a question a bit ago.
I'm wondering about you yourself, as someone who works within the media, and do you face, I'm hoping to one day be a journalist, and something that I'm very concerned about is pressure from my colleagues. Like pressure from the public, who cares, but pressure from my colleagues. And is that something you've dealt with? And how do you use your voice authentically when there is pressure from professional colleagues or counterparts?
Interesting. I can't think of the name of the woman. This happened just a few months ago, actually, that she was hired by a very far left publication, a big one. It was like the Washington Post or the New York Times. It was a big one. And I'm gonna have to find out her name, and I'll send it to Maria, and maybe she can get it to you, the story. But they hired this woman because she was right of center. right? She wasn't right. She was right of center, and everybody else was way over here on the left, my left. And so they hired her for diversity, right? Diversity of worldview. But she said that she had to quit. I mean, she quit this huge job because she said it was terrible being there because they would, get in little groups and, she knew that they were talking about her and they were really, and so she was like, I don't need this. This is terrible. And so her shtick now is she's trying to make it more visible what happens behind the walls of these publishers, right? And so that we know how skewed the news is, right? And I wish I could remember her name, but I will write this down. I'll think of it as soon as we hang up. But you know what? If you're a good journalist, it's not going to matter. If you're a good journalist, you will get a job. A lot of journalism now is freelance anyway. And at some point you take a stand and let the chips fall where they may, but just be the best journalist you can be. Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone else? No? Okay, so I guess we are probably at time. Jellissa is a name that I have never heard. How do you say Girocini? Jirociny?
Curiosity.
Girociny, that's a name. Let's see, Elham. Alizadeh, is that your whole first name? Her whole first name?
I just go by Ellie, but that's my last name, Alizadeh Mohammed. That's my last name.
Oh, cool. Okay. All right. Hi, Ellie.
Hi.
Okay. There's a question from Sarah.
That's a question.
Where is Sarah? Oh, now you're up on. All right.
So my question is, because you mentioned cancel culture, and a lot of people who say things that are not in line with mainstream media, they end up getting canceled, and then it becomes very difficult to hear their point of view. How would we go about using that cancel culture and getting those voices back into the general sphere of public dialogue? Because when we have limited view, then it's very easy to just consume what the media is telling us and to think that things are actually more a certain way than they really are.
Well, the beginning of cancel culture was actually, the idea was to not canceling meant not putting money into the pockets of people that you disagreed with politically or morally or whatever it happened to be, right? So it meant, not going to their shows, not going to their movies, not going to their concerts, whatever. And then it just grew into this big thing where canceling means you don't exist. We're not going to deal with you at all. The only way around it that I can see is to seek out those voices, because they're still there. Yeah, they're still there.
Do you think that there's recovery from it though? Because a lot of people who get canceled, they suffer a lot of damage to their personal reputation. And for example, some people, they can even lose their jobs for saying something that's contrary to what their company promotes.
Yes. No, it's true. And is there a way back? Yes, there's a way back. There has to be a way back. I can't sit here and say I know exactly what it is, but at some point, I think more and more people are realizing that the whole cancel culture is just horrible, and that what we're doing to each other as human beings is unconscionable. So I don't know what that is going to look like, but I have a lot of hope. I have a lot of hope that we can get back to reason, because without, we got to move away from the emotion and back to reason. And the whole label culture has got to die a very sudden death somehow, because labeling people is just it's a terrible thing. It's even somebody like President Trump. President Trump has done a lot of things that I disagree with, but I have not seen that he is a racist. I've not seen that. A friend of mine works for him, and he's, hasn't shown me that he is a racist, but people labeled him a racist. If you ask them why they think he's a racist, it's because, white supremacists voted for him. That doesn't make him a racist, right? So anyway, that's just an obvious example that I wanted to share here. I say things like that in my faculty meetings, and then people say, "Oh, well, Trump's your guy." I'm like, no, I didn't say Trump's my guy. I'm just trying to be objective here. And maybe that's something that you can do, to use examples from the side that you don't agree with, to show, to show the error in the reasoning there. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. It's tough. You guys ask really, really, really good questions, and they're very difficult to answer. Like, because I don't have all the answers. I have a lot of the questions, right? But I have some ideas. Okay, nothing else. Are we at time?
I think so. Nicole, did you want to say something? I noticed you unmuted yourself.
Is that okay, Professor, if I ask one last question?
Oh, absolutely not. Oh, of course.
Okay. So I have a question regarding where you think the future of media is going to go. With an increasing intelligence that we're getting with technology, and with issues with, I was watching a documentary about social media, which I know you're entertainment, but I know it kind of integrates itself a little bit.
Yeah. Is that the one about privacy? The whole privacy thing?
Yeah. Yes, about the privacy. And where do you think the entertainment industry is going to be going? Because it's already pretty extreme to begin with. So do you think it will even go even more extreme, or do you think people will start to realize how extreme it is and kind of bring it back down?
When you say extreme, do you mean, when you asked me that question, I was thinking about, the future of all of media is streaming, right? The future of all media is streaming. But you're really talking about the content?
Yeah.
I think the only thing that's going to change the content of media, of what we have available to us as consumers of media, is that if people get into the media and change it. People, because what has happened is that, especially like here in Hollywood, right? I mean, not in Hollywood, but here, US, in Hollywood. A lot of the people that are in Hollywood are very far left. I mean, very far left, and they have a lot of ideas that I certainly wouldn't agree with, and they have causes that I wouldn't agree with, and that's what they write about. That's what they produce. But people, and it's hard for people without those same ideas to get into that, industry. But I mean, I think that's the only thing that's going to change it, right? It's the only thing that's going to change it. And a friend of mine, actually, who's a writer, have you ever watched a show called That 70s Show? Is that available in Canada?
Yes.
So he was on that show, and he had a really good point. He said, you can't tell people what they should and should not make in terms of media. You have to get in there and make what you want to make, and then somebody can't tell you not to make that because that's what you want to make, right? So I thought that was a really good way to think of it. You can't just say, oh, you showrunner of such and such a show, you can't do that, right? No, that's what that person does, right? But we need to bring more diverse worldviews into the media industry, that creative people to create this stuff. Any of you interested in working in the media? Guinevere, what do you want to do?
I'd like to work in journalism. My ideal goal would be book review, be a book reviewer.
Oh, very cool, very cool.
That's my new latest goal. But yeah, to work for a magazine, write in magazines, and it's very niche, but you gotta do.
Oh, okay. Where are you in school?
I attend Carleton University in Ottawa in their journalism program.
Okay, cool. All right. Anything else? No? Any of the faceless people have a question? Nothing?
It doesn't look like it. Well, thank you very much, Professor. I think this was very insightful. We really appreciate your time. And thank you everyone else for coming. Good luck with your exams that are coming up.
Oh yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you guys study? I mean, do I have time to ask that question?
I'm studying chemical engineering.
Oh yeah, I did very poorly in chemistry. The two people that are listed as Kintor, I mean, are you professionals? You're professionals, right? Because you're a teacher.
Yes, they're professionals.
Yes. Well, Valita.
What did you study? Electrical and computer engineering.
What?
I studied business.
Ah, okay, very cool. And is it Iana?
Ina.
Yeah, I'm in mechatronics engineering.
Oh my gosh, I couldn't go near that. And Sarah?
I study piano performance at U of T.
Ooh, very nice. Wow. And and how about you, Maria? I don't know what you do.
I studied chemistry.
Yeah.
At the moment, I'm the program coordinator for Kintor College.
Oh, good. How's she doing, you guys, as program coordinator? Doing pretty well? Yeah?
I hope so.
All right.
Yeah, and I'm doing health studies and psychology.
You're doing health studies, you said?
Yeah.
And psychology. What a great combo. What's your goal?
For now, like I really like public health, so I'm trying to do masters in public health.
Great. That is so necessary.
Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. Oh, there you are. You turned on your hi. Nice to meet you. Yeah. Very good. Very good. Public health. Gosh, these have nothing to do with the media, but
yeah. And Ruth, there's also Ruth.
Hi, yeah, I'm studying computer science at U of T.
Ah, good for you. All right, and how about you, Ellie? Are you listening?
Yes, I am. I'm studying law and business at Ryerson.
Excellent. What kind of law do you want to go into?
I haven't decided that. It's very hard to pick your field, but probably business because I'm already getting a background in it.
Oh, okay. Do you watch any of the legal shows on TV?
Yeah, I used to watch them heavily.
You used to watch what?
I used to watch them heavily, like all the time, binge watching.
Oh, they're great. They're great. And Jellissa, how about you?
I did social science transfer and I would like to personalize in psychology.
Oh, good for you. All right. So social science, that's more my thing. So yeah. And is it Nikki J?
Yeah, it's Nikki, and I study criminology. I just graduated in June. Yes.
Whoa, and where are you headed?
I'm working right now at a legal software company, but possibly a master's in policy or law.
Wow,
I'm still, yeah.
Wow, criminology. Right. So you could solve crimes?
No, I don't think so, but that would be cool. It's more so social science. So like things like how socioeconomic status and race and gender affect everything, I guess.
Oh yeah. Do you have the same kind of prison problems that we have here about, we need prison reform really badly?
Yeah, definitely. I learned about one of the prisons in London and all the bad things that go on and kind of the culture among like the guards, and it's really interesting. It's definitely things that we need to work on.
Yeah, that's actually one of the things that President Trump has done is to institute prison reform. Everybody else has talked about it. I hope it continues now with the new president. I don't know what his priorities are going to be. Tina.
Hi, I'm first year at U of T in the life sciences program, so I don't really have a major.
Okay, life sciences.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
that,
well, sorry, go ahead.
no, I was going to ask, I was going to guess what that is, but it sounds like you were going to tell me.
Oh yeah, I was. I'm planning on going to nursing school and then maybe getting a master's to become a nurse practitioner in the future.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Did I get everybody, I think? I think I got everybody. All right. Okay, well, it's nice meeting you all. I resisted the urge to say, eh? Okay. All right, so I guess we're signing off.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you so
All right.
much. Thank you,
Sure.
everyone. Have
All
a
right.
great night.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.